It's Ben Rufana. We're back for the fourth in a series um, of getting the love you deserve. And today I want to be talking about uh, asserting your needs, which for some of us, if we grew up in families, for instance, where um, if we weren't acknowledged, if um, if we were subjected to neglect, if our parents were abusive, we had these, as a child, we have these, profound emotional needs. Conversely, like for instance, you have parents that are very caring, very loving, very nurturing, and it it helps to build this foundation. The child internalizes that love, the support, the caring, and and that stays with them. Much of that stays with them throughout the course of their lives. Conversely, those of us who are subjected to neglect, physical, emotional abuse, if we were viciously attacked, if we were subjected to you know, a great deal of criticism, our parents are very narcissistic or something, or if we just grew up, without our parents, we were just, in foster home situations with just whatever caregivers. And I think for the most part, I like to believe that our parents do the best they can with what resources they do possess, but our parents themselves, in many respects, are dealing with their own emotional wounding, their own issues. They themselves were, in many instances, subjected to neglect or abuse. And so often this is something that carries over unfortunately, from generation to generation. So if we grew up and if we were experienced a great deal of neglect, if we were subjected to physical, emotional, childhood sexual abuse, then not only do we have the fact that many of our deep emotional needs are not being met, but we were also subjected to this traumatic wounding. And so what happens is a lot of times as we grow into adulthood and we begin to form attachments, um, the individual that we partner with, and there's something about being with the person. It starts to put us in touch with a lot of these unmet needs, even if our partner is um, doing the best they can, even if they're good enough as a partner. I'm not sure how else to say it. Sometimes our needs or expectations can be a bit unreasonable because we end up seeing through this highly distorted filter. And the filter is created by a lot of those deep unmet needs that we carry and a lot of the highly charged emotions that we hold within our bodies. And but again, as we work constructively with our own emotional responses, as we're able to work through, process our emotional responses as we go through the stages of healing, then we develop greater clarity, greater understanding. There's more of a sense of well-being that we carry with us, more of a sense of contentedness, so that there's not such great demand on our partners and stuff. But for many of us, it's we grow up in these highly dysfunctional environments, and then as we grow into adulthood and we're starting to form these romantic attachments, we start seeing somebody, and and sometimes we go into relationships, we end up with partners that end up reflecting back to us a lot of the um, emotional wounding of our childhood and adolescence. Partners that may say and do things that are very hurtful, partners that, for instance, are not all too considerate of our needs. I certainly experienced that, and I know too that for those of us who were subjected to a lot of abuse, a lot of times what will happen is that we don't feel worthy of asserting or your own needs. Sometimes we're very afraid to voice our needs for a number of reasons. Again, we don't feel worthy. Sometimes we are very fearful that if we say anything, if we try to ask for what it is we want or need, that our partner will become angry with us. We're fearful of their emotional reactions. And the tendency is if we grew up in an abusive home and we're still holding a lot of that emotional wounding, there's a greater likelihood that we're going to attract somebody into our lives who is going to reenact, as I said before, a lot of that early wounding. And and so in many instances we do find, ourselves reenacting those same kinds of dynamics. We end up with somebody who, and we attempt to assert ourselves, and they do react to us. They do respond quite harshly or something, or shout at us, or do whatever they do, or become cold and distant, refuse to speak to us, or whatever. But to the best of our ability, it's like some of us are digging ourselves out of a very deep hole. And I just had a window close, and computers do that sometimes. And so relationships are a tremendous opportunity. We attract people into our lives, and again, they're a reflection of where we are within ourselves. And so if we're attracting um, people to us who are not very kind, say and do things that cause us a lot of hurt, if partners who are uncaring, who are disinterested, who are um, dishonest, all that, then it's a reflection in many respects, as I said before, of our own emotional wounding. Now, on the other hand, too, all of us, even as we heal, or even if as we go through the healing process, even if we do have a good foundation, if we were supported, loved, nurtured growing up, if we've done a lot of work, built a good foundation, we're still going to attract people to us that are not necessarily a good match, or not very kind or considerate, not very healthy people. But the difference is, as we get into a better space, as we heal, as we become stronger, as we become more and more resilient. And what I found to happen is the types of individuals that are the types of women that I was attracted to years ago in my past, um, several things. I find that I'm not very attracted to those individuals. I can feel their own issue, whatever issues they're struggling with. The fact that I've become more and more empathic, I could feel their own emotional wounding. Um, and I could feel that some of them, in some instances, are not very nice individuals to be around or to have to deal with. And so immediately, whereas in the past I would have felt at an attraction and would have become involved with someone like that. At this time, at this point in history, there's more of an aversion. So I just pick up on all that on the part of that other individual, and it's like, no, that's okay. And um, there's more of a repulsion towards that type of individual, someone who's in that kind of place. The other thing too is I get into a better place, and I've seen these same kinds of changes with many of the people that I've worked with over the years, is that as they go through their own healing process, there's this evolution that takes place. And so they start to evolve beyond a lot of the unhealthy or, you know, abusive sorts of partners, and they evolve to healthier relationships. They start attracting people to them with whom they truly resonate and can form healthier and more meaningful relationships. Okay, with that being said, I want to go through some of the basic steps, in terms of uh, where was that here? Um, so when it comes to asserting our needs, as I mentioned, I think it was yesterday, probably past few broadcasts, is that if we've spent a lot of time shutting down, numbing ourselves to, disconnecting from our emotions, distracting ourselves, all that, self-medicating, it's a lot harder for us to be as in touch with our own feelings and physical bodies for that matter. You know, there's a numbing that occurs. And along with that numbing or that disconnect, it makes it harder to be aware of what our basic needs are. And so the more that we progress in our healing process, as we heal our own emotional wounding, as we learn to work constructively with our own emotional responses, then we get a clearer sense. We gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and what our own needs are. And so for many people, and even if you have progressed quite a ways, there are times where we need to, you know, we can be in a situation, we could be in some kind of interaction, and we can be in unfamiliar territory. And so we need to reflect on what's happening, and we need to make some kind of assessment. But it's good to take that time. You know, you don't always have that opportunity, but when you can, take that time and begin to reflect on your current circumstances, the relational dynamic with your partner, or any other individual that you're interacting with, and and your current interaction, maybe with some conversation that you've had, something that was said, something that was done. And of course, too, you can deepen the process by, as you bring the situation, you bring the partner or that individual that you're concerned with, bring them into your awareness, whatever circumstance, whatever situation, hold them in your awareness, notice what you're feeling, and breathe softly and deeply, as I've said numerous times before. You do that, you're going to gain a lot of insight, you're going to gain understanding, gain clarity. But once you're face to face with your partner or that individual, well, start by being honest with yourself, but then, um, about what it is, what your needs are, what your concerns are. And next thing, be direct to the best of your ability. Be direct and be unapologetic in the expression of your needs. Now, again, sometimes if we were subjected to neglect or abuse, if our parents or caregivers, whoever was incredibly self-involved, our needs weren't recognized, they certainly weren't met, then we may not feel entitled to having our, you know, our own basic needs, or and even less so to assert them in any way. So I know there were situations where I would be wanting to or needing to assert myself, assert my needs, and I would be physically shaking. I would be so uncomfortable that, and yet, to the best of my ability, I realized that, like, I could feel how I was so compromised, whether it was in that relationship or some other interaction, and I felt this at a very deep level that I needed to just come out and assert myself and either establish a boundary or just say what it is I was needing under the circumstances. And I think I've gotten a lot more assertive when it comes to expressing my needs. And at the same time, when you're expressing your needs, it's a two-way street. It's not all about you. I mean, you have to take the other people into consideration. And so not only will I ask for what I need, I will at the same also taking that other individual into consideration and thinking about what I can do, to ac accommodate their needs or their concerns and all. Other thing, take responsibility for your own needs. It's not about you're not making it about your partner. Um, in other words, when you're openly and honestly conveying what your needs are, then just you're expressing your desire for what it is you would like to have happen. I should pause just a second to mention I'm in northern Idaho at the moment, and as I'm recording, it just happens. uh, The sky is very overcast, and it seems like to be getting even darker. Um, so that obviously affects the lighting situation. But anyway, um, but again, understand that you are entitled to have and assert your own basic needs, and also again strive for balance by asserting your needs and preferences, and also simultaneously taking into consideration that of your partners or any other person with whom you're interacting with. So, on a physical need, we have our physical level, we have basic needs for water and clothing and food and shelter, sleep, and some of our most basic emotional needs are for acceptance, affection, belonging, autonomy, empathy, love, security, trust, validation. These are all reasonable. So when we're in a relationship, and I've heard some people say that, you shouldn't have any needs. Well, what's the point of even being in a relationship if you don't have any needs at all? See, within relationships, partners do depend on one another to some extent, to help meet or satisfy one's basic needs. It's not about creating some unhealthy dependency or anything. And we need to evaluate our needs, for instance, like if, for instance, the need for constant validation, to always be the center of attention, to constant reassurance from your partner that he or she still loves you or something, that's pretty unreasonable. However, if you're expressing needs, for instance, like, I would really like to be able to sit down for a meal together and not have your phone on the table, and so that we can actually have some quality time together. Or, um, you know, you're working such long hours, so I want you to commit to at least um, one night a week. That we could spend time together, and so that we're still you know so it feels like we're actually in a relationship, as opposed to you're just working long hours, coming in and sleeping and leaving again, and I'm just hardly ever see you. um, ex- Expressing the needs such as what I'm describing, of course that's reasonable. So um, let me move along. Let me see what else I might need to include here. And I, it takes practice. As I said in the beginning, when you first start asserting yourselves, it can be very intimidating. You might feel uncomfortable. Again, you might not feel worthy of having, or you feel like you're being a burden if you just assert what your basic needs are. But do the best you can. And, if you cross some boundaries, if you overstep, you could always apologize. You know, But the other thing is sometimes, you have situations where, you could be in a situation where you've taken on too much responsibility, maybe too much is expected of you. And so if you if you're asserting yourself by, just your own healthy limits and asserting what you can and what you cannot do, for instance. So in these kinds of situations, as you assert yourself, it can lift a tremendously heavy burden upon you. And the scroll function doesn't seem to be working all that well. Um, what else should I include here? Another thing too, I don't have that much more to cover today, but if those of us who have grown up and we were subjected to um, physical or emotional abuse, if we grew up with parents who were or caregivers who were very self-absorbed, that were not very attentive to our needs, then a lot of times what can happen is that there's a tremendous amount of hurt and other painful emotions that we hold within our bodies. And so sometimes we can be quite overly reactive. It's like we're seeing the world and seeing our partners through this lens of all that hurt and those other highly charged emotions that we hold in our bodies. And if we haven't already done a great deal of internal work, if we haven't made significant progress along the healing journey and worked through much of this backlog of emotions, we are more likely to overreact. And so, that being the case, when you do have the opportunity, take that time, to step back, go for a walk, or go off on your own for a while. Sit with, bring again your partner, that individual, into your awareness. Notice what you're feeling. Just feel the whole dynamic of the situation and allow all those feelings to come up as you continue to breathe with them. You gain more insight, more clarity. It's going to help you to see the other person's, um, where they're coming from, what their needs are, to understand their considerations. But it'll give you a more balanced understanding of yourself, that other individual, and and how you can come up with something that's a bit more workable for the two of you. And and there will be times as well when you just find yourself in a situation where it's just you just need to say what needs to be said right then and there. Anyway, I think that's good for today. So I'll leave you with that for now. If you have questions, do feel free to reach out to me. You can go to, I posted a link to the current edition of this chapter. Seems like as I do these live streams, I get more insights for things I need to accumulate. There's also a free ebook you can download for the essentials of getting over your breakup and moving on. One person told me that she was getting, I don't know, a 404 page, or that it wasn't going through. I have if I'm not using the cable, I have a slow internet connection on my laptop, and I couldn't access it either. But when I tried on my smartphone, I was able to access the ebook, or at least the page to download the ebook or something. But if you just type in gettingoveryourbreakup.com, with or without the www in front of it, it should take you there. So again, gettingoveryourbreakup.com, you can download that free ebook. I will leave you with this for now. Bye for now.